The following program is made possible by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
As the president grows increasingly isolated, the attention turns to those who would be president. This week, we'll look at who are they and how are they positioning themselves for the 2008 campaign.
We'll ask two of our favorite political analysts, the San Francisco Chronicle's Carla Marinucci and Bill Whalen of the Hoover Institution. The game is presidential politics. The game is on.
I'm Bob Marks.
And I'm Mark Simon. Welcome to the game. We're talking presidential politics, and we're just awash in it. It's January of '07, and we're already talking about moving primaries and who's going to run and 16 different people. But before we do that, we have to dispense with George W. Bush, who just had his State of the Union address and took a whole different tone, but basically the same strategy, Bill. Yeah. Did he do himself any good? Or it looks as though not only that, but he was trying to revive domestic policy initiatives that have already failed him. It looks like he's staying the course on Iraq and trying to stay the course on his domestic policies and trying a new tone rather than a new approach.
Yeah, well, I think he is right now what Winston Churchill once said of Clement Attlee. He is a modest man with much to be modest about. The speech actually I thought was better than most people anticipated. He does so much better in front of an audience than he does by himself in those isolated White House speeches, which I think are just deaf. The domestic agenda, ironically, there's not much going to happen on the domestic front. Let's be honest. The health care plan that he talked about was declared dead on arrival by Pete Stark after he gave it. They might do something together in energy. It won't be the Manhattan Project or anything like that, sending the man to the moon. What he did with this speech, though, is he bought himself time. He bought himself 6 or 8 months to see what happens next in Iraq, and I think that was the main purpose of the speech that night. He had a very effective soundbite. I thought, let's give it a chance.
Carla, there are a host of Republicans getting ready to run for president. I don't think any of them want this war wrapped around their neck, and it looks like the president's going to be of no help to them in that
Absolutely.
regard.
That seemed to be part of the president's plan, I think, at least throw out some domestic things so that the Republicans in the audience who want to run would have something to go back and talk to voters about. You're absolutely right when we're talking about the Republicans who are out there in front, McCain, Giuliani, Romney. These guys are all wrestling with the war. And it doesn't help the president, too, but the next day after he gave his speech, Cheney was out there giving a very combative interview to Wolf Blitzer on CNN. I think didn't help the president at all. I mean, this is the kind of problem that he's got right now.
Actually, I don't think the Republican candidates are wrestling with the war so much. I mean, McCain and Romney and Giuliani, the presumed 3 frontrunners on the Republican side, they've pretty much identified themselves as with the president and with the surge. You know, McCain was talking about the surge before the surge became a trendy thing to talk about. Where the trouble is if 6 or 8 months from now, Iraq is still the daily topic on the conversation, and that'll be death for these guys. But there's a flip side to this too, and that is if you're a Democratic candidate right now, some of the prominent Democrats, John Edwards, of the 3 frontrunners who are Edwards and Romney and what's her name from New York, Hillary Clinton. That's right.
Obama.
Now Obama has identified himself as very anti-war.
Yeah.
John Edwards is
He's
even more.
lucky he wasn't there in the Senate when the vote.
That's right. He says if he's here, would have voted against it. John Edwards has said that his vote was a mistake.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton still trying to figure out exactly where she is.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if 6 to 8 months from now the Bush plan flops? What do these folks have to say about pulling out troops and cutting off funding?
You're right. That's where the wrestling comes in. We still don't know what's going to happen, how this is all going to come down. Everybody's trying to walk that tightrope that gets them there to the nomination.
Bill, what about this? You know, everybody in Congress has a resolution on how to deal with the president, but the reality is there really isn't anything they could do. I mean, the troops are already starting to arrive in Iraq. So is there anything that Congress can do to affect the president's plans?
Not really, except sort of be like Dean Wormer in Animal House and pass double secret probation on the president and really be upset with what he's doing. What they can do is make a lot of noise and investigate to death. And I think that's the next thing to watch and see if the Democrats take a different tack. Instead of complaining about the direction of the war, go back now to how we got in this situation and go back and start investigating Halliburton, investigate intelligence, and just start dragging administration officials.
When you got Republicans like John Warner raising some very serious questions, this has got to be a real problem for the president.
The point Bill's making is the House may be where the action is now, because Pelosi was actually fairly subdued after the president's speech. They let the Senate take the formal response, although apparently people think Webb did very, very well. Jim Webb of Virginia did very well on his response.
That's right,
but okay, Is the war going to be an issue in 08? I know you don't know, but what do you think? Is it going to be an issue?
I don't see how you can escape it. No matter, even in the best case scenario, the question is, how do we get ourselves into this in the first place? What does it cost? And at what price other programs and issues in this country have suffered, even in the best case scenario?
Yeah, it's first of all, it's obviously a threshold candidate for any candidate. Not so much about Iraq, perhaps, but what will you do about Iran? Would you support military operations in Iran? Every politician is going to have to think about what they're going to do on that. But then the second way in which Iraq is a factor here is just the overall mood of the electorate. If a year and a half from now, the fighting is continuing, Americans are still dying on a daily basis, it is going to be a bitter, divided electorate, and it'll be a very fertile ground for an anti-war candidate to assume the presidency. One
of the things you heard about during the midterm elections over and over again was the desire of people for there to be some, at least appearance of a consensus on this issue. Right. It certainly looks like we're not starting the year with one. Is there the potential for one at all? Is there, or is it something we're just going to have to muddle through until we find, someone finds a way out?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the president's problem. You know, Stephen Colbert said this week, we know that the government that governs less governs best. Well, then that's what we've got in Iraq. That's the Republican. So the Republicans have to answer for where is this consensus going to come in Iraq? How is it going to happen? Is the government going to get it together there and get the message? And as Bill said, all these surrounding and peripheral problems that come with it. How do Republicans and Democrats sit down? We did at least see, I think, at the State of the Union, a more conciliatory approach from the Democrats. You know, the Republicans, when they took power, were booing Bill Clinton in the audience at many points in his State of the Union addresses. That did not happen. There wasn't that kind of outright. Pelosi sort of gave the message that, yes, we're going to have respect and try and listen.
So they're conciliatory in terms of cosmetics. Now, how many Democrats had a speech said, yeah, I want to work with the president. I want to sit down and discuss his health care plan. I want to work with him on energy.
What they did say, which is what Pelosi needed to say, was, we look forward to the president working with us, which is, I suppose, better than it's dead on arrival, which is often what you heard the Republicans say about Clinton.
She was fascinating to watch during the speech because, as you know, there's so much choreography and showmanship here, and there's always a question of when to stand up and clap and when to not. And you can see a few times where she was, you know, it's like on the old "What's My Line" show where you kind of at the end you get up and you don't want to get up. She was kind of thinking, oh, maybe I should stand up and support it. No, maybe I shouldn't applaud. So
standing up, and you know that exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the next race that's coming up. So, Bill, let me start with you. The first thing is, who are the Republican candidates out there that are talking about running or that are running?
Or maybe a better way, that we should at least take a little bit seriously.
Yeah. We should call this the Carla Marinucci Full-Time Employment Act, by the way, as it never stops for her.
It's not her fault that the campaigns never end, you know.
Yes.
Political reporters, this is a dream, I must say.
Exactly. Okay, of the 8 or so Republicans, Lord knows how many there are. I didn't even check my BlackBerry to see who else has jumped in. There are 3 serious contenders, and that's Senator McCain, that is Governor Romney, and then former Mayor Giuliani. I think the other 5 just really don't fit in the landscape.
Candidates like Congressman Duncan Hunter.
Hunter from California, and Sam Brownback, the senator from Kansas,
Tom
Tancredo, running in some cases to make a message about immigration, some cases running just because they're out of office anyway in a couple of years.
Vice presidential.
Does that mean that Romney is the conservative in this race? I mean, how are these people positioning themselves, or is it too early to tell?
They're interesting. So far, Romney all 3 are sort of running against themselves in one way or another. McCain is running against the maverick image from 2000. You know, McCain has a big plus in that he has very high approval ratings around the country, and because of his background, who he is, people tend to like him automatically. On the other hand, within conservative Republican circles, they know that John McCain has been something of a shadow president for the last 6 years, who has not been shy about criticizing the president. So he has to sort of, he has to make up with that.
On the other hand, he's made inroads or tried to talk to some of the evangelicals that he angered the last time around, and some of the people on the other side who liked him are now wondering, who is this guy really? So I think he's hurt himself on that.
Rudy Giuliani, on the other hand, America's mayor, If you think of 9/11, you think of Rudy Giuliani, a stand-up guy. He's been spending a lot of time in the South talking in particular to Southern Baptists about what it is to be a progressive, social progressive from New York.
On the other hand, 3 marriages and a very publicized affair while in office as mayor.
It really is a game of Twister for these guys, isn't it? You know?
And then Mitt Romney, to finish it out, the former governor of Massachusetts, is essentially running against his Senate campaign in 1994 when he tried to knock off Ted Kennedy by being essentially a very moderate Republican. So it raises questions as to where he is on abortion and affirmative action and real red meat Republican issues.
His problem could be his religion. A Mormon candidate for president, that whole issue has not been explored. Evangelicals could have a big problem there.
A lesser soul than Bob or I might feel a little cynical about all of this. I mean, do these guys stand for anything? I mean, it's sort of a general question. Is it all about winning and not about what you're going to do with the job once you get the dang thing?
I think it is all about winning.
I don't think it's going to be any different when we talk about the Democrats.
This is the end game, but do they stand for something? Yeah, each of them does, and I think each of them has sort of a distinct message. Right. The question is, how much are they going to blow in the wind, and what will be left by the time this whole campaign is finished? These are meat grinders, as we know. And some of them fold, and some of them, there are things that happen beyond their control, and we have no way of knowing what's out there and what could trip these guys up.
Is there anybody standing in the wings, anybody out there who, if all 3 of these guys run into all kinds of problems that could emerge?
I think Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, he's one of the dark horses. I'd say very, very dark horse. But he's been around California. We met him at the Chronicle. He came. Very impressive guy, and a sort of a centrist, almost independent kind of candidate.
Great speaker.
Great
really
speaker. Several people have said this is somebody who could be there, but we're talking long shots here.
He's the Jared candidate. He's lost 100 pounds. That's his claim.
It didn't work for Cruz Bustamante in his race.
No, it did not.
No. Well, it may be useful to him when the rest of the candidates show they have a whim of iron. But one of the things, if recent history teaches us anything, it's someone unlikely or unexpected is going to emerge and have an impact whether they win or
I don't know
not.
if that's going to happen this time around, and we're going to get to this in a minute, I suspect, and that's because of the incredibly front-loaded nature of these primaries. You're going to have a situation where you're going to have 15 to 20 states voting within the period of maybe 3 or 4 weeks from January to February, and if you're an outsider who's maybe not well-financed and not a lot of name recognition, it's very hard to make any kind of inroad in that.
It's all about dialing for dollars and presence on TV.
We're going to be back in just a minute and continue our discussion. We'll talk about those primaries and about the Democrats. Stay with us.
Since the dawn of civilization, humans have sought knowledge and wisdom. The quest to answer the mystery of life is carried on for thousands of years.
But you can learn all the answers easily. Just watch these amazing high school students on Bay Area Quiz Kids. Each week, 2 teams from across the Bay Area compete for an incredible grand prize. Watch Bay Area Quiz Kids each Saturday at 2 p.m. on KRON.
Whenever there's new innovations or revolutionary technologies, chances are they've got something to do with the Silicon Valley. And that is what Tech Close-Up is all about.
Tech Close-Up is about even more than just bytes and chips. We cover the people in your community. We're all over the Bay Area. To find Tech Close-Up where you live, just go to our website at techcloseup.com.
Okay. All right, that's enough. All right. I've got enough. Come on! Oh, you gotta be kidding me! What the heck? Man!
We're back. I'm Mark Simon. He's Bob Marks. This is The Game, and we just can't talk enough politics here. We got to talk all the way through the break. We're joined by Carla Marinucci of the San Francisco Chronicle and Bill Whalen, Hoover Institution, Republican insider, and other stuff like that. We bashed the Republicans. Now let's bash the Democrats. There are 8 or so of those running, and of course, there's the bull goose loony of the whole bunch, as they say, one flew over the cuckoo's nest, and that's Senator Hillary Clinton of New York. Is it Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs?
I mean, she's the 800-pound gorilla. Look at somebody who's known to the American public as the First Lady. She's got the money. She has the best campaign political analyst with her, or campaign strategist, her own husband. At the same time, personally, when you talk about just one-on-one with voters, she doesn't come off on TV, I think, and I know from speaking to Democratic grassroots groups, there's a tremendous amount of fear that she's going to bring up all that old stuff, fire up the Republican grassroots, Whitewater, Vince Foster, all that stuff will be back. Is she a candidate of the past and Obama the candidate of the future? That seems to be the theme.
She's one of those people. People aren't lukewarm about her. The people who don't like her, they hate her. I mean, Will Durst, the comedian, was on our show, and he made a great point that, you know, they accused her of plotting to murder Vince Foster, and that's when she was First Lady. What are they going to call her when she's...
That's exactly the concern that Democrats have, and Democratic women, I have to say, I go to a lot of groups, there's a lot of concerns about Hillary Clinton. That whole Monica Lewinsky thing is still out there. There's a lot of women who feel like she should have been, you know, a lot tougher coming out, and, instead of walking across the lawn of the White House with the guy holding hands. So there's all that, you know, drama.
So there's Hillary, there's John Edwards, the former senator who's had nothing but campaign time on his hands, and who did very, very well 4 years ago.
And Edwards, I followed him around Iowa and New Hampshire. This guy is incredible when it comes to, you know, going to those school auditoriums and cafes and talking about American values. Will that play again? And what exactly is his message this time around? He's still getting very big crowds. He still has great retail politicking skills. And he could be the guy who benefits, say, if, you know, the Hillary-Obama train crashes.
And then, of course, there's Barack Obama, this month's flavor. I mean, I
think more than this month's.
Well, but he's really, it's sort of almost a phenomenon.
Hugely. I mean, in California, we're seeing people like Steven Spielberg doing fundraisers. He's going to come here next month, and this is going to be rock star city. The guy has really fired up the Democratic grassroots. They see somebody who's got a vision and a life experience outside those stuffy halls of the Senate, and he has tremendous skills, communication skills.
And people really don't know what he's all about. So like they did with Ross Perot and they've done with others, they project themselves, everything they believe that he believes the same thing.
Yeah, he's the Rorschach test.
They would, and I would contend that in a very cynical electorate, there is sort of an inverse ratio of returns proportion where the less people know about you, the less of a record you have to your advantage. Barack Obama, I think, has this going for him in a general election. I say this as a Republican, as it scares me. If Iraq continues to be just a nightmare for the Bush administration, if the public becomes more turned off on both the current administration plus politics in general, if the Democratic Congress doesn't really do anything different, doesn't deliver on its change, then I think you could be looking at 2008 as a truly generational campaign, like 1960 and like 1992. And what did 1960 and 1992 have? Two 40-something Democrats coming along who were kind of light on the record when you got down to it in terms of real accomplishments, you know, outside of biography, but were just the right people at the right time.
And it's important to note whose campaigns were all about change.
Exactly.
And Barack Obama has the same themes that we've seen here in California with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is this bipartisan, you know, American dream, let's move forward. You know, he said Republicans are not our enemy, evangelicals are not our enemy. They're speaking to Democrats. And that kind of message, I think, is what voters, they're sick of the gridlock. They want somebody to move them out, and maybe it's somebody who is just has not had a long history there.
Plus also, he's very eloquent. His books are very eloquently written, and he's actually very well spoken. And as a speechwriter, I think that's not something to be underestimated. George Bush gets knocked around because he is tongue-tied, because he is not a good public speaker. Hillary Clinton gets knocked around because she seems to be rather talking point-driven and kind of, you know, sort of rehearsed and not very real.
Focus group.
Now, he doesn't suffer from that.
We've got another person who's about to be center stage at the Academy Awards, and that's a former candidate, Al Gore. How does that play into this? I mean, is there a viable possibility, if things just bog down in the Democratic Party, that Gore could come in and...
There's not a Democratic group that I don't go to speak to or report on that doesn't bring this up. Could Al Gore come in? And now with the Academy Award nomination, the fact is that Gore's doing nothing right now to talk to people, to call people, to But and why should he? The guy's making a ton of money in tech companies. He's the speaker du jour on environmental. He is the guy right now. And yet, several people say they feel that if he felt that he was needed somewhere in the process, or the pressure became so much, that he would get into it, and he could get into it and could raise money immediately.
Now, the interesting...
I don't think it happens. I'm sorry. I think Barack Obama just completely took his thunder away. Barack takes away the anti-war sentiment. Barack will probably appeal to the blogosphere, who would naturally go to Gore. So I think Gore would actually...
Unless something happens to Barack.
Unless something happens to Obama.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, ordinarily you'd say it's almost too late in that he has to have already begun organizing in Iowa, organizing in New Hampshire, raising the money. But you alluded to this before, Bill. The process is increasingly going to be tilted towards someone who can begin at a national level, because they're moving all the primaries. I mean, they're even talking about moving some of them into 2007. First of all, is it going to change anything? Does it change the dynamic? And do they really need to do this? Is this the right thing to do, Bill?
I think from California's standpoint, the talk of California moving from June to February the 6th, I believe the day is, I think, is an incredibly selfish move by the political class in the state, by the media class in the state, by people, I think, just who, not the person at this table, but other people. I think I'm certain.
In case you're talking about classy media.
Exactly, classy media. No, California has a self-esteem problem when it comes to national politics. We want to be the end-all, be-all. We want to be the driver, and we seem to have a chip on our shoulder with this. So we think that driving up to February the 6th will change it. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to move to February the 6th. I counted this morning. There are 9 other states looking at February the 6th. So we'll be on February the 6th, so at least a half a dozen other states, and a smart candidate will look at this and think, okay, do I want to spend $5 or $10 million to maybe win in California, or do I want to spread the wealth around the country and say, okay, fine, Hillary or John McCain, you take California, I'm going to win 4 other states and declare myself more of a national candidate.
On the other hand, the people who support this say, what you're getting right now, and John Kerry is a perfect example, are candidates who know the skills of retailing in small states, Iowa and New Hampshire, but may not translate well on a national level. But California, being the nation's most populous state with a demographic that more represents the nation, could be a place where we get to see the real strengths of these candidates, and people are saying it's good for California too, in that more attention to California issues. That's the governor's argument.
We go through this every 4 years, and to me, the best proof of how cynical this whole thing is just look at why this is being done in Sacramento. Not because they're all concerned about the presidential process, but because the Democrats in the legislature want extreme term limits, the Republicans in the legislature, they want redistricting reform, and the governor wants to be relevant come February because he can't run for president.
The fact is,
it's all about me, myself, and I.
In terms of what you're talking about, Carla, the fact is that it may just be that they've been lousy candidates, because the fact Ronald Reagan had to work his way through the primary process, so did Bill Clinton. In fact, Clinton survived through the primary process until he emerged as a winner, and they both did fine on the national stage because they had rocks in their pockets when it came to talking at a national level.
Right now, it is so very front-loaded to Iowa and New Hampshire. Well, coming out of there, last time around, that was it. It was locked up for John Kerry.
The problem you've got is it strikes you as illogical that a state as big and dominant in the country as California has virtually no role to play in choosing the
But
nominee.
conversely, that's the problem. Size matters in this case. California is so big, it is so difficult to campaign in terms of just getting around, logistically getting from the East Coast to the West Coast. You waste so much time flying that unless this were the first state in the country to go into, and you absolutely had to be here, candidates will always find an excuse to blow off this state.
And
Well,
it's the point.
they
Now,
managed to
they're
find
not
money here, though.
They're now talking about, if California is in February, moving Iowa and New Hampshire to December.
Christmas.
You're right.
Christmas.
Christmas in Iowa.
But let's say this thing is decided in early February. That's a long time till November.
Well,
and
just think if you're a state senator or a state assemblyman who wins your primary in February in the state, and you'd be sitting around for 9 months.
I mean, doesn't it really change the nature of the presidential campaign to have that period of time?
Well, then we get into this other complaint about this, and that as soon as states like California complain about we're not relevant, so we speed it up, then people in California are going to say, my God, the process is too front-loaded. We don't thoroughly vet candidates. So it's like squeezing a balloon. Once you create a bulge on one side, and a bulge comes out on the other side.
It's all really a function of if our guy lost, we don't like the way the process works.
Exactly.
But could it bring more attention to California issues? This is one thing the governor has said, which is you got these presidential candidates, they want to appeal to voters in the state. Maybe maybe they will talk about federal funds for repairing the levees, federal funds for the California National Guard, whatever, you know.
No, come on, you won't even write about that stuff.
You don't write about that.
You're not a policy geek.
I had to try.
You're going to write about which celebrity is supporting Obama, Brian.
Right, exactly. And Liz Taylor has signed on.
No, it's not. I just think, you know, look, I like the governor, I support him, but I think he's just being greedy on this one. My God, a very conservative Republican president just talked about energy. He just talked about health care reform. That's pretty California-like in terms of agenda, so enough, Governor.
Yeah.
It's a year away from theoretically any of those primaries. Right. Real quickly, what's your best guess? Who's going to be the Democratic and Republican nominees?
You know, if I had to look at it, now, I might go with Barack Obama. I just anecdotally, I see so many concerns about Hillary Clinton. I have to wonder if there's something else out there in the electorate on that. Other side, McCain has hired on an incredible team, the same team that had Arnold Schwarzenegger. I would have to put him, but that's just
it's so front-loaded. So I think you have to go with money and you have to go with organization. And front-loaded to me means you go with the front runners, which would be McCain and Clinton.
Okay, well, we're going to have you back real soon, and we're going to continue to watch this. Mark and I are going to be back in just a second, and we're going to have some final thoughts. Stay with us.
It's been over 150 years since Wells Fargo first opened for business. Since then, we've enjoyed your community support, and we're passionate about returning it. Every day, Wells Fargo team members roll up their sleeves and donate their time to organizations and charitable groups throughout the Bay Area. Nationally, we've committed even more. In just the past 2 years alone, we've donated over $70 million to support schools and educational programs. It's a commitment we're proud of. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
Since the dawn of civilization, humans have sought knowledge and wisdom. The quest to answer the mystery of life has carried on for thousands of years.
But you can learn all the answers easily. Just watch these amazing high school students on Bay Area Quiz Kids. Each week, 2 teams from across the Bay Area compete for an incredible grand prize. Watch Bay Area Quiz Kids each Saturday at 2 p.m. on KRON.
If you live on the peninsula, there's only one place to get the latest news on business, sports, politics, education, and your community. Peninsula TV, Channel 26, the Peninsula and South Bay's Emmy Award-winning programming resource. For more information or for a programming schedule, go to pentv.tv or call us at 650-637-1936. Peninsula TV, your community programming channel.
Welcome back to the game. We love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, we do. What I was going to say is this is going to be fun. Yeah. I mean, this is wide open on both sides. There's all kinds of things that can happen. It's going to be fascinating to watch it play out. The one thing I've really felt for a long time is this race is set up for Barack Obama. The timing and everything behind it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Probably better than 50% chance it won't. But I could see him just running the table.
It's interesting how many firsts we've got. Yeah. First really serious woman candidate. First really serious African-American candidate. First Mormon. We got first Italian-American. We've got a lot of things going on in this election. And so I think Bill may be right in that however it turns out, it's probably going to be a watershed year. What I think is, and I agree with you, I don't think we can all say it's going to be McCain and Clinton, and no one should be ashamed for making that prediction at this point. But I think it's really all bets are off. Yeah. And that's it for now.
I'm Bob Marks.
And I'm Mark Simon. Thanks for being with us, and join us next time on The Game.